Greetings, friends. I'm Vitaly Portnikov. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov found himself at the center of another Central Asian scandal, this time in Uzbekistan. During his visit to this country, while visiting the grieving mother memorial in Samarkand, Lavrov was exclusively interested in the fact that the inscription on this memorial was not made in Russian, but only in Uzbek and English. Words to honor the feat of the citizens of Uzbekistan who participated in World War II were, of course, not found by the head of the Russian Foreign Ministry. However, to be honest, I'm not very surprised by this. Both in the Soviet Union and in modern Russia, the victory in World War II is often portrayed exclusively as the achievement of the Russian people, forgetting the contributions of all others. It is no coincidence that Sergey Lavrov's boss, Vladimir Putin, once said that the people of Russia could have won this war on their own, forgetting about the enormous sacrifices made by the citizens of all the other Allied republics, and ultimately that victory is only possible thanks to a strong home front. And the role of Central Asian countries as territories where countless evacuees relocated and where industry was transferred from the territories of the Soviet Union occupied by Hitler is often not even mentioned, especially since neither Lavrov nor Putin can be persuaded otherwise. If at the monument to a mother mourning her fallen children, Lavrov exclusively recalls were chauvinistic narratives. The official bodies in Uzbekistan did not respond to the words of the Russian foreign minister. The tour guide had to justify himself in front of the head of the Russian foreign ministry at the memorial. However, the rector of the University of Journalism and Mass Communications, Sherzodkon Kudrat-Khodja, responded to the words of the Russian foreign minister and noted that it is completely inappropriate for the foreign minister of another country to criticize Uzbekistan when visiting from abroad. After all, Uzbekistan is not their colony, the rector noted. And of course, this statement once again highlights the irritation caused in Uzbekistan by the chauvinistic behavior of Lavrov and other Russian officials. Kudrat-Khodja reminded that when the rights of migrants are violated in Russia, none of the officials, authorities, or police representatives respond to these incidents. If Mr. Lavrov speaks about the sanctity of the image of a mother, referring to the language of the inscription, we have the right to remind him that human rights are no less sacred. It is clear that the rector would hardly have made such a statement without understanding that it would be received with approval by the leadership of Uzbekistan, as no one in Tashkent would appreciate the Russian Federation's foreign minister lecturing another country's leadership on what language to use for inscriptions on memorials, as if he were not a guest of Uzbekistan, but its Governor General. However, I have no doubt that in Lavrov's view, he sees himself in exactly such a role in any former Soviet republic. And those countries that do not agree with these perceptions of the Russian elite about their role in relations with Moscow are subjected to coercive pressure or even war. After all, it is worth remembering that Lavrov talks about the Russian language not only when he appears at memorials in Uzbekistan, but also when he sets conditions for ending Russia's war against Ukraine. There, too, an important condition is the rights of the Russian language in the neighboring country. And in order to ensure these rights, the Russian army kills Ukrainian women and children who, incidentally, often speak Russian themselves. But we perfectly understand that from the perspective of exerting forceful pressure, from the perspective of a chauvinistic agenda, the more people are killed and punished, the better it is for Lavrov and those whose foreign policy he supports with his visits. As we can see, we have reached a situation where Russian officials, in their chauvinistic frenzy, are not even embarrassed and are ready to lecture literally on the territory of the countries they visit. In relation to the Central Asian states, this irritation may also have an important component related to these states' desire to find other partners outside the Russian Federation. Naturally, Sergey Lavrov cannot be pleased with the fact that the president of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, meets with the chairman of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, in a hotel. And it is Xi Jinping, by the way, who was the main guest at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Samarkand. Xi Jinping and not Vladimir Putin. And this was visible to the naked eye, and a particular irritation in Moscow was caused by the recent European Union Central Asia Summit, where the leaders of the European Commission and the European Council discussed with the presidents of Central Asian countries the possibilities of cooperation between the European Union and the countries of the region in the context of the economic changes we have observed in recent months. And it is clear that any such vectors of cooperation irritate Moscow precisely because they serve as a reminder that Uzbekistan and other Central Asian countries are not colonies of Moscow at a time when Russia has been making efforts over all these decades to ensure that these states remain Russian colonies, remain a reservoir of cheap labor to be mocked. They remained territories of Russification. And of course, any inscription in Uzbek, not in English, infuriates any Russian chauvinistic official who arrives in Tashkent or Samarkand for a visit. Sergey Lavrov, in his audacity, simply demonstrated this demonstratively, reminding of what all his other colleagues think when they visit Uzbekistan and other Central Asian countries. So it's not even a signal or a scandal. It's just a manner of chauvinistic thinking. Thank you, friends. Stay on this channel. Subscribe to it. Subscribe to my social networks, to the channels on Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and Donatello, which help develop these resources. Just use the sponsorship feature on YouTube itself.